He's not perfect. He's not Jesus. So, no, he did not make it easy for me all the time. We had a lot of good days. But as he declined, his physical state would alter his emotional state. He's a man. You start losing the ability to walk or to do anything physical. You're a golfer and able to be involved. Your emotional state changes. You have to deal with that. And it was hard for him to deal with that, which is where I came in as the coach that I am. I had used some of those same tactics, with my husband and bring him back around. It's like, well, no, you can't do that. But what can you do? Is there anything that you can do? Well, what is it that you can do now that you would enjoy doing? We can't sit here because you can't walk. We cannot, lose the value of life itself because you are not able to walk anymore. So what are some things that you can do now in this state that you are in that you would enjoy, that would bring you some joy? What are some things? So we had to go those rounds a lot, because, you're feeling like you're not able to function, which he wasn't, it's like, well, what can you do? I'm not an enabler. That's just not my nature. I don't enable people. And you might feel bad. And I understand that he came home from dialysis on a lot of days because dialysis just drains you. He's extremely tired, not fussy, but just really tired, doesn't feel like talking or, whatever. I get that. So I'm not about to, jump into anything with that. You need your rest. Don't you just take a rest? And if you came home in a bad mood, it's like, yeah, you're just feeling that way because you just got out of dialysis. Why don't you just lay down, take a rest? I'll bring you a snack till I get your food. Let me turn the television on for you. Anything special you want to watch? Because I'm not entertaining that. So anything special that you want to watch on TV, let me go out and I'll go get you something. And, he could be in a grumpy state. Be in a grumpy state in your room by yourself. I'm going out to find you a snack. So then when I come back in there, it's like, oh, okay, so you feeling better now? Is everything better? Did you get a little bit of time to yourself? How are you feeling? Well, I'm feeling a little bit better. Okay, good. I'm glad that you feel, because I just don't entertain that. I didn't entertain that with my children. My children fall down. I was not the mom that went, oh my day, you fought it. No, oh, you're fine. Get up. Get up. You bleeding? Nobody bleeding. Okay, come here. I'll give you a hug. Then go back and play. I didn't entertain. I love my dad. He said, you can do bad all by yourself. You don't need anybody to help you do bad. I was 13 when he told me that. And that allowed me to think in my brain that I don't need anybody to help me do bad, so I'm not entertaining any of that. I was young. I didn't get all of it. But as I got older, it was like, if I'm not going to be dramatic, I'm not entertaining your drama. Always in crisis mode. No, come up out of that. Then there's something demonic about that. It ain't right. It's not right. Yeah. And I'm not saying it, I don't want people to think, first of all, I'm not perfect. I try to let Jesus be perfect in me. There's a difference. And I have challenges. I just handle my challenges differently than most people. I do have challenges. Okay. I am challenged. The enemy shows up. I show him the door real quick. He doesn't get to come in here and sit down and take up a chair and sit at the kitchen table with me while I'm eating breakfast or lunch or dinner. He's got to go. If I know you're here, you have to leave. I don't entertain that. But I don't want people to think that, I don't have things. I've just learned how to make things work and not entertain negativity. I said years ago, when I was in my 20s, I'm not a garbage dump. You're not going to bring me your trash. Matter of fact, my trash can is empty and cleaned out. I don't even have trash to put in it. So I won't receive anybody else's. So I don't want people to think I don't have issues, because I do. I've had major issues. I've had major trauma in my life. It didn't stay in that either. I don't know this, but this is my theory. I think most people think about God as he's some big ethereal thing way out there, way up there, and not so intimate and so close that we could hug. I see him, God, as a father, Holy Spirit as a true teacher, and Jesus is sitting at the right hand interceding, but he is also my friend, my brother. We're all connected. Our life, now that I'm in the family, I view that as me being a part of this family, and these are the positions that they hold. And so I can go and get any answer I need, because they're greater than me. And I don't have a problem going and asking or trusting. I remember telling the Lord the other day, I'm like, I cannot see you. I literally said this. I was in my bedroom and I was like, I can't see you, but I know you're there. Nobody could ever convince me that you do not exist. I know you're there. As assured as I am that he is there, I am that assured that he will see me through and answer what I need and give me what I need. Because I am in that state of mind, I just don't go there. I don't go anywhere else. I don't need to. I think, first of all, I want people to know that if they are in the state that I was in, that there's always a solution and a strategy. The Lord is the best strategist. If you just really go to Him, He can show you how to work it out. Whether that's you're feeling like your marriage is a failure, or you're a literal caregiver, or in a relationship and you just feel like it's not working out. I want people to know that it can be done. Sometimes if we don't know someone or haven't had a chance to talk with someone or see someone that's done it, you don't know that it can be done. It can be done. If I, in my 35 years of marriage, spent over half of my marriage taking care of my husband, and the latter half taking care of someone that was completely bedbound, that I had to do everything from, because he could do nothing. So imagine doing nothing for yourself is like a baby. What do you do for a baby? You do everything for a baby. If I can do that and be in good spirits, and my friends know, I've had people, they're in and out of my house. My friends are able to pop up on me that know me close enough, They know if I can do it, you can do it. Anybody can do it. You just have to figure out how, and that's where the Lord comes in, or, someone to help you with that. And I also want people to know that during the time that I did this, I have never seen a person like my husband be in such good spirits. Now, he had his bad days, don't get me wrong, but everywhere he went, people were so moved by his ability to give positivity, to give a smile, or to give a prayer. I had a man that lived down the street from us when we moved into the last home where he passed. When we moved into that home, I didn't know this person. The man came up to my yard one day, and I was talking to the neighbor, and this man pulled up in his car, stopped the car in the middle of the street, and got out and walked over to where we were at the fence talking to this other man. He introduced himself, and he said, I heard that Greg Small moved in. He said, and I was thinking there probably wasn't like more than one Greg Small here in Springfield. He said, is your husband, did he ever go over to this facility? And I was like, yes. He said, oh my goodness, I knew it had to be him. He said, if there's anything you need, he said, I know he's bedbound. He said, but if there's anything you need, if you need someone to come and sit with him, if you need somebody to go to the store and pick up anything for you, he said, if there's anything you need, he said, my name is so-and-so, and this is my number. He said, please do not hesitate to call me. And he used to text and check up on him every day. And if there's anything you need, he said, because when his mother was in the facility, Greg would meet with her every day and encourage her and pray with her every day. He said, and he would come up there for lunch and he'd be with his mom. That's how he actually met Greg. And he was that way with everyone. And when he passed, the funeral home where he had his service was so full that the line was going out the door. They said that they had never had a service with as many people that came in all their years of being open. And this is a very well-known funeral, but that many people showed. And I want people to know, from the person needing care, you don't have to be a grump. You don't have to be a person that's nasty and negative. You don't have to live in your emotions. You can find a way to deal with it. And the person that's giving the care doesn't have to be resentful. No one has to be. There are options. There are ways to work through all of what you're going through, because I've been through it. I've lived it, have witnesses to how I lived it. This isn't something I'm making up. I just want people to know that there is a solution, and you can have a better life from both standpoints. You just have to do the work. Well, I think people feel like they've had something taken from them, as opposed to looking at what is or what could be. He began to view life differently. We both had to. I had to come to grips with the fact that, the man that I married, he's not the man that I married. Certainly physically, he's not the man that I married. And you have to come to grips with that. Okay, if you're not involved physically anymore after so many years of marriage, then it's like you're practicing celibacy. It's like you're not doing anything. And so you have to think about it. It's like, no, if something's not being taken away. So it's almost like losing your five senses. If you lose one sense, the other senses get stronger. So it's sort of like that, where you lose the ability to do the things that you used to do, but then you have to really figure out, okay, so what can you do? What can we do together? how can we spend time together differently or the same in some ways, maybe not physically, but maybe do some things together that we would absolutely still enjoy. Like we could get up and go out. I could take him out, go out to eat or whatever. We didn't do a lot of that because it was such a struggle. Just, he can't do anything. And we certainly got closer in the end because, we had those, because in the end, we did hospice. At the very end, they couldn't give him anything to sustain any of his physical pain at all. Before he had been able to take, pain medication, it wasn't working anymore. He was just in severe pain to where he's in tears. He was just like, he was done. And he was ready to go. And so we had 19 days, the last 19 days, and we were able to talk about, the future, my future for the children and plans that we had made and some of the things and how I would go about, handling things. But I do think that being in that state can cause you to push away from each other or draw you closer. And I think the drawing closer, it only works if you're not resentful. You're not going to draw close to a person that you're resenting. And if the caregiver isn't resentful, it's hard to get close to a person that's all in their feeling and they're not in a good space. It's hard to get close to that because you got a wall up and you're constantly negative and feeling bad and self-pity. And even if the caregiver is wanting that and doesn't feel resentful about taking care of the person, it's hard to get close to the person because they won't let you because they've got a wall up. Mm-hmm. So then that's where they have to do work. I could coach a family like that. I'm hoping that this is something that people would actually be able to utilize and then maybe find some strategies that, I used to help them to make life easier for them, because it can be done. It certainly can be done, or I wouldn't be here. We're talking about, at one point he had a wound vac, had to take care of, the wound vac. The nurses did come in 3 days a week, but the other 4 days a week, I had to take care of that wound vac. You got a hole in your leg, a hole in your foot. At one point he had bed sores. He came out of the hospital he had COVID. He came out of the hospital with bed sores, one as big as a ball, that big. I had to take care of that. And then when he went back, they were like, oh my God, this is all gone. Baby skin. But the only way that happens is you got to continually clean someone when they have an open sore like that. But those things, it can be done. All of his appointments, and he had to go to doctor. He had to continually eye doctor. He had eye surgery. He was constantly going to see some doctor for something. So he had to be taken there. He didn't get up and go on his own. So it can be done. I think that's what I want people to know. And I'm saying all of what I did because I want people to know it wasn't just like, oh, I just was a caregiver. No, I was everything to him. I was everything that he needed. So, you got a nurse we had at the end when he went into hospice, we had a nurse that would come in and bathe him. But before she came, I did all of that. There was never a nutritionist. I made all of his food, everything. They all said he was very unique because he was seeing specialists, but one specialist was only specializing in that one thing. So the diabetic doctor was a diabetic specialist. The renal was specializing in that. They would never cross over. So whenever he had to go to the hospital, and he was actually in the hospital at one point, 41 days. And I actually stayed in the hospital 30 days of those 41 days. But I had to because they only specialized in that one thing. So being in the hospital, if the diabetic doctor said, we need to do this, I needed to be there to say, that's not going to work for him because he's got this. And they're like, oh, so he's seeing such and such. Yes, he has this doctor and that won't work for him. That'll cross over. It'll cancel that out. You can't do that. I had to meet with all of his doctors when he was in the hospital and had to be there at all times because there were different times where they would have like residents come in, they're still in training. So I would have to make sure that I was there when they come in and they would come in to talk and I would have to actually talk with them because whatever they decided they wanted to do, there were a lot of times and I would have to tell them that won't work. What do you mean it won't work? And you got to tell a doctor that's not going to work. Well, it's not going to work because he's seeing XYZ and his chart. If you look at this, it might not be in there, but here, I've got this and this and this and had to show I carried all of his papers with me, everything. It can be done. It can be done. But I think the biggest thing about caregiving and being the person that needs care is you have to do your own self-care work. You have to, or it won't work. If you want to be in a good, healthy, emotional state, you both have to do the work. And one has to allow the other one to lead. You both can't lead. I mean, you can in some things, you can be a team in some things, But if I'm cooking his food and I know what he needs, then he has to allow me the privilege of bringing it to him like the hospital would, and not telling me, I don't want that, I want this. If you're in the hospital, you're not telling them. They're bringing you what you need, and they have a specific diet for you, and you will follow that diet as long as you're in the hospital. But a lot of times when people get home and the family member is trying to do that, they were like, I don't want that. Well, that's not going to work, and you're just going to be back in the hospital. So to make it easier on everybody, you just need to follow what it is that you actually need. That's why I say you both have to do the work, or it won't work. I knew that I could take care of him, and there was nobody else better for the job than me. And if I didn't take care of him, he would die. And I didn't want him to die. I wanted him to have a good life. I wanted him to at least enjoy the time that he had left. And I knew if he went anywhere else that he wouldn't be taken care of. I can't say that I had moments of sadness, because we always knew that the Lord would take him before me. We both knew that. The Lord told both of us that. He's been sick most of our marriage. Not all of it, but most of it. I can't say I had moments of sadness, but I did have thoughts of what's it going to be like. But I can't say that I had moments of sadness. I probably had more moments after he's gone. I think I was too busy to really get into that space. But I did have thoughts of, what's going to be like when he's not here. We would talk about it. But I think a lot of that helped also because we did talk about it. It was almost like preparing someone for something while you're able to prepare them. And so that when it does happen, you're already kind of prepared. But remember, his passing was one of the greater things for him. And we all know that. We all say, well, going to heaven is going to be like, that's the greatest thing. But for him, really, it was the greatest thing for him. We were like, yay, you're going to heaven, because he was in such pain. He cried every night. After a while, it got to the point where he was in such pain that it was like, yes, okay. He even woke up one day and he was like, am I still here? I'm like, yeah, you're so it's like so funny, but it's like, yeah, you're still here. But no, yeah, I don't think in the whole scheme of things that I was sad, because I was happy that he would be free from all of what he was. I think if I hadn't walked with him through what he was going through, it would be different. I might look at it different, but I was like happy, like you're going to go be with Jesus and you won't have to deal with this anymore. I watched him suffer. I watched him suffer. Mm-hmm. And so for me, I think the sadness probably came after he was gone and I'm being alone. It's like, wow, he's not here now. It's quiet. If you do something, you're expecting a certain response from something that you say or do or think, and he's not there to do it because you're so used to that. So I think it's more that now, but during the time, no, I was happy. Like, oh, okay, I want you out of pain. And then when he told me that he had a dream that he saw himself standing before the pearly gates and he could walk, but he was floating in the air. And then to show you how my husband, he said to me, and I was wondering, where are my things? I'm like, Greg, you're in heaven. You're not going to have your things. So he would say stuff like that. But I was more happy than sad knowing that he was going to go and be out of pain. Yes, I did enough. I gave him plenty of years on his life. That has been testified by the doctors that he would not have lived as long had I not done what I did overall, from the organic food, making his nutrition and caring for him the way I did and helping him emotionally and mentally. And no, I have no guilt. I don't do guilt. So, yeah. If I have a goal in life, whatever that goal is, if I don't accomplish it, I'm not one to feel guilty about it. It's like, okay, you didn't do that, so you need to regroup and start over and get it done. But I don't beat myself up. I don't talk negatively to me. I don't allow anybody else to do it. And I don't have guilt. I don't believe that we need to have guilt or condemn ourselves. I think that comes from the enemy. And so I don't live in that world. I live in the world of telling myself, being realistic, mind you, but telling myself that I can do all things, that God loves me, I love me, I like me, and that, everything's going to work itself out. It's all going to be good. And if you didn't get it done today, better get it done tomorrow or you're going to be in trouble with yourself. It's kind of like that, but I don't do guilt. Yeah, I don't do guilt. It's not healthy. I don't think it's healthy at all. Because if I felt guilty about anything, that would go with me forever. Because how do you ever get rid of that? I mean, how would you get rid of that guilt? You'd have to work through that. if I felt guilty, if oh, I wish I could have done more. Even if you wish you could do more, let's just say you're with a type person that somebody passes and you were their caregiver and you really wish you could have done more. Wishing you could have done more doesn't mean that you didn't do your best. Okay. So if you sit and you live in the world of you wish you could have done more, or even if you say you wish you could have done things differently, you can't. They're gone. So why entertain those thoughts? You can only change what you can change. And if you can't change it, then regroup, think about it a different way and move on. So when he got sick, I had to start taking over things that, like all the financial, I had to start taking all of that over. I mean, I did some and, had my own, but I had to start doing everything, all the bills, handling taxes, all of that I had to take over because he couldn't do any of that anymore. He had started losing his sight. He couldn't see. Everything became my responsibility, down to all the insurances, everything. I had to take it all over. But that prepared me for now. So it wasn't like I was just dumped into having to handle those things. I was already taking care of those things with him. So once he passed, I just kind of continued taking care of the things that I was already taking care of, which wasn't, difficult. He prepared me for this. And then my husband and I talked when he was in hospice about what life would be like for me without him. Talked about that going forward. We had 19 days to discuss finances, our hopes for the children concerning the things that we had set aside and the things that we wanted for them and what life would look like for me going forward. We talked about that. It wasn't I don't want you with anybody else. It wasn't anything like that. He was very confident. You are young. We've had a good life and, you need to move on and move into something different. Don't feel guilty about, if you find someone else. We had a very, very good conversation.